welcome to another edition of Christian Answers. My name is Pastor Jeff Short. Today we're going to talk about a letter from popular Christian author Philip Yancey, and he is talking about Christians who are voting for Donald Trump, and he is raising objections to Christians voting for Donald Trump. And I want to talk about his letter, and we want to dive into what he has to say and see if there's any merit to his criticism. He is criticizing Christians who are voting for Donald Trump. It should be interesting to analyze his letter because as an evangelical Christian who has written for Christianity Today, he's written many best-selling Christian books. He brings a evangelical perspective, but as we'll see, I believe that he is mistaken because he has forgotten the priorities of government outlined in the Bible. So we're going to look at what he says about Christians who are voting for Donald Trump, and then we're going to talk about the alternative to Donald Trump and see how that would, see if he criticizes that, which would be voting for someone like a Hillary Clinton. Is that an acceptable thing to do? And what is his conclusion at the end of his letter? Well, we're going to look at that. We looked at Wayne Grudem's letter that was encouraging Christians to vote for Donald Trump. I also analyzed a letter from a woman named Rachel Held Evans who was encouraging Christians to vote for Hillary Clinton about a couple months ago. Now I'm going to look at a letter from Christian Philip Yancey, who is encouraging Christians to reevaluate their vote for Donald Trump. So we're going to talk about this, and I'm not going to tell you who you should vote for in the elections coming up in November, but I want to get you thinking, and I want to get us all thinking about the what is and what isn't Christian, and how do we respond to this dilemma that we find ourselves in. We find ourselves in faced with two candidates that we normally wouldn't even consider because of their either overt positions on political issues or because of their character and conduct in their life. And so we are faced with a situation where we actually, quite frankly, have two candidates that really don't seem to be qualified to hold a high office in our country, but one of them presumably will be president, and so we have to process that as Christians. We have to figure out, okay, what do we do? They're not people that we would normally want to vote for, but faced with a choice, how should we face that choice? And so we're going to look at Philip Yancey's letter today, evaluate it, and see where we come down on what side of that decision we have to come to. So let's look at this letter. I'm going to present it on screen, so let's look at that right now. Well, hello, this is Jeff Short again, and we're going to be looking at an article that was found in the Huffington Post, and it's by a popular Christian author, Philip Yancey. It's about Christian author Philip Yancey, and he is baffled. That's the headline. Popular Christian author is baffled by evangelical support for Donald Trump. Philip Yancey wants to know, how can evangelicals support someone who stands against everything that Christianity believes? Now, we're going to look at this article and we're going to ask ourselves, is that actually a true statement? Does Donald Trump stand against everything that Christianity believes? We certainly know that Donald Trump is no model Christian. I don't think anyone would argue that Donald Trump is a ideal Christian that is a role model for people who follow Christ. But to say that he stands against everything that Christianity believes is, I believe, an a hyperbole. It's overinflated. It's not true, actually. But let's hear what some of the things that Philip Yancey says. I'm going to play a little clip from his interview, and then we're going to talk about his actual interview that he gave to the Huffington Post. But let's play the clip and see what he actually has to say for himself. And we'll see, we'll evaluate what he says.
Show my own bias. I am staggered that so many conservative or evangelical Christians would see a man who is a bully, who made his money by casinos, who has had several wives and several affairs, that they would somehow paint him as a hero, as someone that we could stand behind. I'll just say it out loud. I can't understand how I can understand, well, maybe you choose these policies that you support. Okay, I understand that. But to choose a person who stands against everything that Christianity believes as the hero, the representative, one that we get behind enthusiastically, is not something I understand at all. And frankly, I think the church in the United States, the more it embeds with politics, the more it, shall we say, hitches a ride with politics, Europeans understand where that goes. When the church and the state are seen like this, and then the state proves what it is, which is a flawed, sometimes corrupt system, then the church is judged by and rejected in the same way the state. There are countries in Europe that you know where the church is set back for decades and decades because they have been stained by the way they sold their soul for power, I would say. And as the United States grows more and more secular, I tell the people there, I tell my people, we are becoming more like the fertile soil in which the early church did best, like the Roman Empire. This was a pagan, hostile society, and yet Christians stood out by being different. When you're at a place like the United States or Europe in its recent past, where the majority would claim to be Christians, but they look like everybody else, then people don't understand what the gospel is. If they look radically different from the world around them, people can see that difference.
Okay, so there you hear him, and you hear what he has to say. And now we're going to actually look at the article, and I'm going to read it, and we're going to look at it and analyze it here. It says, award-winning Christian author Philip Yancey is dumbfounded by the way that many members of his faith have rallied around Donald Trump. And on that point, I have to agree with him. There is some kind of a strange phenomenon taking place where you have people who hold to certain values, moral values, character values, the fruit of the Spirit, the ideal Christian lifestyle and manner of speaking, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden they are embracing someone who seems to be totally oblivious to all of those concerns about Christian lifestyle, morality, for example, materialism and spirituality, and all of these important Christian expressions. We don't see that in Donald Trump. And although we don't see them, many Christians seem to want to get behind him wholeheartedly. Now that's curious. I can understand saying, well, reluctantly, I will vote for him because I don't want to see Hillary Clinton, who is terrible as a candidate and would be a terrible president because of her warped and twisted values. I can see someone voting for Donald Trump that way, but not feeling good about it. But to actually getting excited about voting for Donald Trump, and knowing who he is and what he stood for and his whole life goals and vision for life, that is baffling. And I agree with Philip Yancey. There does seem to be this total setting apart of the ideals of who we would want to see as a leader, as far as character-wise, just for the purpose of defeating Hillary Clinton. And I think that's the primary reason. But he goes on. He says, Yancey expressed his doubts about the Republican presidential candidate and his Christian supporters during a recent interview with the website Evangelical Focus. We just saw that interview. I'm staggered that so many conservative and evangelical Christians would see a man who is a bully, who made his money by casinos, who has had several wives and several affairs, that they would somehow paint him as a hero, as someone that we could stand behind, Yancey said. Well, Yancey seems to be focusing on the characteristics of a good Christian. Certainly a good Christian is not a bully. A good Christian would not make money by encouraging gambling and the foolish spending of resources. A good Christian would not have had several wives and conduct several affairs on the side. But we're not electing a Christian hero. We are electing a president, a leader of society. And what Yancey didn't say was that Donald Trump is trying to get into the conservative mold. He's trying to oppose abortion in a crude way. He's trying to oppose many of the things that Christian values oppose. And he's trying to promote many of the values Christians promote. So in his policies, that's what's important. And Philip Yancey is focusing on who he is. But you could be like a Jimmy Carter, who seemingly is a really nice guy. He's not a bully. He did not make his money by casinos. He did not have several wives, and he did not have affairs. And so you would say, wow, Jimmy Carter is the ideal Christian candidate. No, not necessarily, because of Jimmy Carter's political views, his political stands, his policies. Jimmy Carter, even though he is a Christian, he is for abortion and he is for gay marriage. And so you have these contradictions that you might think Jimmy Carter would be a great Christian candidate, but he would be a crummy Christian candidate, because what we're electing a president for is not to be a squeaky clean individual who could potentially become a pastor of a church because of his character and so forth. We're electing someone who would promote the values that the Bible outlines in society. That's the important thing. And so when we look at a Donald Trump, no, he might not be somebody that you would want to be as a role model in the Christian community, but he might be somebody you might want to lead a nation if his decisions are in line with Christian values in a general way in society. And that is why Christians are beginning to go to Donald Trump to look to be the next president, because they see his policy would be more in keeping with Christian values than Hillary Clinton by far. When you have a Hillary Clinton who is supporting abortion rights, who is supporting gay rights, supporting the entire radical redefinition of society, and then you look at a Donald Trump who is not an ideal Christian by any means, but whose policies might actually get us by for the next 4 years. Even if he's not a very good president, he might not be able to do much damage. He might not know how to do enough damage policy-wise to really hurt this country. But we know for sure Hillary Clinton would, by her policies, damage this country even further than the current president has damaged this country, which is quite a bit he's damaged. So let's go on. To choose a person who stands against everything that Christianity believes as the hero, the representative, one that we get behind enthusiastically, is not something that I can understand at all, he added. Well, that's not a true statement, and you have to be fair. Donald Trump does not stand against everything that Christianity believes. That is false. He opposes abortion. That is his statement today. His list of Supreme Court justices that he would choose from in appointing Supreme Court justices appear to be pro-life. That is not against Christianity. I don't know what Philip Yancey is saying other than just saying a radical, exaggerated statement. He does not stand against everything Christianity believes. His life, his overall life, does not line up with the ideal Christian life by any means. He is a rabid materialist who has spent his life making money. You can cite passages like the love of money is the root of all evil. He probably is guilty of that. He is a materialist. He has all of the goods of the world, and he seems to really make a point of having all of the goods of the world, and money seems to be important to him, very important, and so do possessions. So we can go to scriptures like the root of all evil is money, and so forth, and show that he's not the ideal Christian. But to say that, to choose a person who stands against everything that Christianity believes, false, wrong. No question. That is a over-exaggeration. It's not fair, actually. So you need to be careful, Philip Yancey, in your bafflement of evangelicals supporting Donald Trump. You have to be fair, and you have to be accurate. And Donald Trump does not stand against everything Christianity believes in. There are many things that he does stand for, that important things that he does stand for that Christians can endorse. And if you look at the alternative, Hillary Clinton, you will see that she does not even stand against everything Christianity believes. But she does stand against very key policy decisions that Christians disagree with, such as abortion on demand, so-called gay marriage, the LGBT agenda, all these such things she is for, and as a genuine Christian, we should be against. So Donald Trump may not be a very good Christian, if he's a Christian at all. I don't know. I do not know into his heart. He doesn't seem to talk about his faith very much. He doesn't seem to take it very seriously, at least in public. And so it's hard to tell if he's a Christian or not. But whether he's a Christian or not is irrelevant at this point. He's running for the presidency, and his policies might be something Christians can align with. And so you can't make generalized statements like he stands against everything that Christianity stands for. No, he does not. That is totally false, and an author like Philip Yancey should be more careful with his words and more careful with how he describes people, because that is misrepresentation right there. So he goes on. Yancey, a respected author and columnist whose books about Christianity have sold millions of copies, is just the latest evangelical heavyweight to speak out against Donald Trump. There are some. A number of high-profile evangelical Christians have parked themselves in the Never Trump camp, pointing out that the candidate's policies and actions don't reflect Christian values. Again, that is an overgeneralization. In some areas, his policies don't seem to reflect Christian values, but in other areas, they do seem to reflect Christian values. So it's not a all-or-nothing thing. It's a both and. Yes, he is inconsistent in some areas, and no, he's not inconsistent in some other areas compared to Christian values. And so Christians have to weigh what areas is he inconsistent in and what areas is he consistent in, and they have to decide based on what is most important. And I would say that his stand on abortion, against it, is a very important factor. This is a very important thing in our society. God will judge a nation based on its violence against the unborn. And if Donald Trump can help turn the wrath of God away from this country in that respect, we need to listen. Hillary Clinton will not turn the wrath of God away from this country in respect to abortion. In fact, she will invite the wrath of God. So you need to add that. And I don't see Philip Yancey saying anything bad about Hillary Clinton. If he's so concerned about a candidate aligning with Christian values, he needs to be fair in his criticism and say, but when you compare him against Hillary, he's not so bad. But when you look at Hillary Clinton's stated public record, there could be no question that she is opposed to Christian values in very important areas. I've named just a couple. Let's go on. And yet, rank-and-file white evangelical Christians don't seem to mind, or at least are willing to forgive. That might be because of the areas in which he is inconsistent are not as important as the areas that he is consistent in Christian compatibility. The group, which counts for 1/5 of all registered voters in the United States and the U.S. and roughly 1/3 of all voters with the Republican leanings, has been rallying strongly around Trump. Now, I understand his bafflement about that. If I vote for Donald Trump, I will vote because he is the only other person I can vote for. I can't vote for Hillary Clinton in good conscience as a Christian because of all of the problems that she has. But if I vote for Donald Trump, I will not be celebrating the vote. I will not be jumping up and down and saying hurrah and boy, this is a great guy. I wish I could. I'd love to totally get wholeheartedly behind a candidate, and usually I do by the time I'm voting, but in this case, I may have to vote for someone that I don't actually like, somebody that I don't actually feel good about, but I feel better about him than her. I feel better about Donald Trump than I do Hillary Clinton. And so celebrating Donald Trump, no, I don't see there's room for that, but voting for him, yes, there might be. According to a recent Pew Research Center survey conducted in June, 78% of white evangelical voters said that they would vote for Trump. That's because of who he's running against. In private meetings with evangelical pastors and supportive of his campaign, the nominee promised to cherish and defend America's Christian heritage, which has struck a chord with Christians who feel that they are losing the culture wars, which we are. It's not a matter of feeling that we're losing the culture wars. We are losing the culture wars. The biblical values that our Christian culture had, the semblance of a Christian culture, are slipping away. The redefinition of marriage is just the latest in this, and we could give examples of other things. So it's not a feeling that our culture is going down. It's actually factually true. Marriage is going down the tubes, and it's partly because of the redefinition of marriage that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats are promoting, and Donald Trump seemingly, even though he's not consistent here, he seemingly is for the standard definition of marriage, man and a woman. So that would be why Christians might be inclined to vote for him. But Yancey believes that tying the church and politics together in this way isn't good for American Christianity in the long run. Well, it's not. It's not good to tie our faith to one political party, but we're not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't know some Christians are doing that, but I think conscientious Christians will say, look, I'm not tying my faith to the Republican Party. I'm just voting for that party because they seem to have a candidate that at least is acceptable in some sense of the word. I mean, seriously, can you as a Christian look at Hillary Clinton and say, she's promoting abortions? Yes, I think I'll vote for her. She's promoting so-called gay marriage. Yes, I'll vote for her wholeheartedly. Yes, she's promoting the whole LGBTQ agenda and redefining Christian morality in our whole culture. Yes, I can jump behind her and support her. No, are you kidding me? Really? That is the opposite of what Christians should be thinking. And Donald Trump, you can say at least, well, he's inconsistent on marriage, but at least he seems to be wanting to promote the traditional values of marriage as a man and a woman. On abortion, who knows? He might have even supported abortion before when he wasn't running for president, but now he has promised and pledged to appoint only pro-life Supreme Court justices. That's a good thing. So as Christians, we can get behind that. We don't have to feel good about him in all respects, but at least we feel good about that. But Yancey believes, okay, there are countries in Europe where the church is set back for decades and decades because they have been stained by how they sold their souls for power, I would say. Well, that's true. And we're not talking about selling our souls for power. We just want to stave off the judgment of God on our culture, and we see that maybe Donald Trump will buy us some time so that we can pray and ask God for a spiritual revival, and maybe we don't see the destruction of our culture. That's all we're saying. So I think Philip Yancey is off, and I don't think he accurately represents the alternatives. If he were accurately assessing the alternatives, he would have had a lot of criticism for Hillary Clinton as well as Donald Trump. He didn't. I don't see any criticism of Hillary Clinton here. I don't see him criticizing Christians, evangelicals who are voting for Hillary Clinton. I don't see him pointing out the flaws in that. He only seems to want to take aim at Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a big Trump fan, but again, I actually in the past I've called him an idiot. But it might just be that I vote for an idiot this November because he's the best candidate, better than the other alternative. Well, I hope that's been helpful to you, and we'll talk to you later on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless. Well, okay, as you have heard, I've tried to analyze the letter by Philip Yancey. I hope this has got you thinking about Christian categories, and we will see you back here next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.